I've been asked by the stewards to remind you that the Guild Club meets tomorrow night in the Wesley Room at 7:30 p.m. There's a special guest speaker tomorrow, travelling all the way from Doncaster. Her name, I'm told, is Edwina Belch. So, Guild Club tomorrow, 7:30 p.m, to hear Edwina Belch from Doncaster. And it's this theme I wish to explore today, friends, in actual fact. Not belching, thankfully, for the Bible is strangely quiet on such carnal matters, as if such normality has been airbrushed out of the Gospels. Although we do hear references in the Scriptures to the wind of the Spirit, or we sing in the hymn about the trump of God, in the main, neither Jesus, nor his disciples, nor Queen Elizabeth were ever guilty of needing to say, "Pardon me," although that touches on the topic of forgiveness. Is belching, therefore, a sin if we feel the need to receive pardon for the act? A topic for another day. But suffice to say, if breaking wind is a sin, then in the words of St. Paul, I am the worst of sinners. The theme is hearing God, a topic we surely need to grapple with, like a pit bull terrier grapples with the postman's hand. We who dare to take the name of our Lord and call ourselves Methodists ought to be sure that we can hear God, and yet we worry that we are blind to hearing the voice of God. Look at the person on your left. Do you feel they are able to hear God better than you can? Now look at the person on your right. Anyway, there are dangers and pitfalls. God can speak to us at the most inconvenient of times. Sandra, my wife, was taking a well-earned break from internet shopping and enjoying a bath when she heard a booming voice commanding her to stand up for Jesus. Needless to say, it was not God. It was me, singing through a kitchen roll tube. A mistake I shall not be making again in a hurry. The doctors tell me the tube should pass quite naturally in a couple of days. There are many lessons for us hidden in the depths of the hymns, both ancient and the even more modern ones from the 1900s. I will be exploring these messages in a forthcoming sermon. You have advance warning in case you need to make alternative arrangements. But God can and does speak to us through the hymns. My wife is particularly moved by the harvest hymn of Fred Kahn, which contains the verse, "We thank you, O source of all goodness, for the joy and abundance of crops, for food that is stored in our larders, and all we can buy in the shops." Sandra takes this verse particularly to heart. God can speak to us through the words of the hymns, and also possibly through the playing of the merry organ, sweet singing in the choir. Well, in other churches maybe. The prayers, the creeds, the gospel readings can also be used as the chariot of God's specific message to you, and sometimes, perhaps, just maybe, in the humble act of preaching. It was revealed to me by a helpful member in another church that during one of my sermons they realized that the word preaching can also be read as pre-aching. Now, I'm not one for complicated prayers, and when I leave the vestry and pass through the sacred portal, I say a quick prayer and remind myself that I am a preacher for God's sake. I have heard others mutter a similar prayer when they see me, so I am always heartened by their encouragement. But we still expect God to speak to us in large letters in the sky. Now, don't get me started on large letters. I've never understood why the Royal Mail brought those changes in. The number of things I've posted where I later find out that the recipient has had to pay additional postage because I've only put a second-class stamp on it. Now, it's not just the width that matters, it's also the length and the thickness. You have to have a degree in geometry and mathematics just to send a letter these days. That's why they say you've got letters after your name when you've got a degree. It's because once you've got a degree, you are sufficiently qualified to be able to send a large letter. I've worked out why it's so complicated. It's to lure you into the post office, so they can ask you if you want to buy any top-ups, or insurance, or bread and milk, or peanut butter, or a herd of goats. No, I just want a stamp for this letter. And then they ask, does it have anything valuable in it? Why are they asking that? If you say yes, do they just steam it open when you've gone? Or if you say no, do they lose it there and then? God does not speak to us in large letters, in my experience, nor in words that stretch across the sky where God calls us to minister in pleasant beach resorts such as Bournemouth or Poole. We also still anticipate that God's voice will boom out of heaven like Brian Bless.